Hello there, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Stacy Spangler, and I'm a self-taught mixed media artist and instructor. And today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 simple tips that can help make your artwork look a lot more professional, especially if you're a beginner artist and really no matter what your medium is. So thank you for joining me. Let's get started. So in this YouTube video, I'm just going to give you 5 quick tips that I pretty much use every time I do a painting and really do help give you a better outcome when it comes to your artwork. So the first thing I always tell beginner artists especially is it's really important to start out with a plan. I always do a thumbnail sketch and kind of plan out my composition, my colors. I do have a free online course, and I'd love for you to join me in my online studio and take a look at my inspiration lookbook course, and it kind of shows you how I gather my inspiration and how I go in my planning process. And that is a really good way to start and just kind of have a book full of inspiration that you can pull from. It's also great to practice. I am not a big drawer. I don't enjoy drawing. I love to paint but don't love to draw, but that process, even just little rough sketches, is really important to get that down on paper before you actually start with your painting and you're laying out your sketch on your painting. So that would be my first tip for you, is to plan and actually do a sketch. So my next tip is a little controversial among some artists, but I really do recommend that you choose your paints wisely. There is a huge difference, and you will see a big difference in your art from really cheap craft paints versus even a good student grade paint. I love the heavy bodied paints. You will see a difference in pigment, which you'll also get better coverage, so you'll use less paint in the long run. But you can check out my Amazon storefront and see more about what paints I use. I do in a lot of my lessons, especially my ones for beginners, really cover the difference between the paints and the pigment of the paints. And I'll put a link in there to a beginner's guide on choosing your paints. But you don't have to, spend a ton on paints, but I would recommend not using craft paints. When you start out painting, you'll get frustrated. And also another thing I say is to mix your own paints. Don't use the colors just directly out of the bottle. You'll get a lot prettier colors and a lot more interesting colors if you can practice mixing your own paints and do that from a limited color palette. All right, my third tip for you is to always prep your canvas or your surface. You can do this with a wash, which is just a little bit of your paint with some water, or you can use a gesso and prep it. But I always think the more layers you have on the painting, the better it's going to look, and the more vibrant your colors will be. It doesn't matter what color wash you want to use. I like to use color, and so I use brighter colors. But I love just having a color show through versus a white, and that's why I always recommend that you prep your surface first. All right, another tip that I always say, don't use a pencil to sketch out your design. Use a water-soluble marking tool, something like chalk. I use a Woody Stabilo pencil, even like a charcoal pencil. That way if you make a mistake, it's easy to erase, it doesn't damage your canvas, and it covers up easily with paint. And my last tip, which is my personal favorite, is just layers and layers. I always go darker and duller to lighter and brighter. And I explain that more in my online courses, but basically I love the layered look in my art. I use that. I get the layered look with texture, but also with using value and a variety of colors. Mixing your own color palette makes it really easy to do that, where it is, kind of all cohesive and there's some unity to it. And so basically, I'll start out with dulling my color down and using a darker color, and then from that point I mix my colors where they get lighter and they get brighter and more vibrant, and it makes those underlayers really pop. It gives a lot of contrast and makes your colors show up better and just really have a lot more dimension into your art. It really doesn't matter if your art is more fun and whimsical like mine, or even if you're working with a darker color palette, you can still use this concept. So that is one of the things I always tell beginner artists, is to really layer that paint and look at your values. One thing I say with value, that is the lightness and darkness of a painting. So think of it as taking a black and white picture of your artwork, and you should have different values. You should have a light, a medium, and a dark, and then you can do that scale. That would just be a 3-part scale, light, medium, and dark, but vary that scale where you've got at least 5 variations in your values. And the more values you have, the more interesting your painting is going to be. So if you take a black and white picture or a picture of your artwork and turn it into a black and white, if you just have like 2 values there, or even 3 values, it's probably kind of flat and there's not a lot of dimension in your art. And so you keep adding those values and get that range of values, and your art will be more interesting. Thank you again so much for joining me here on my YouTube channel, and I would really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, and subscribe to my page. Share it with your friends. It helps me provide you with more content like this. I love to hear feedback from you, what other things you'd like to see me record. And again, go check out my free Inspiration Lookbook course and my online course library. I have a lot of freebies on there. I also have a Behind the Brush newsletter that is great for artists, especially beginner artists, because I give a lot of applicable tips on there, just on different things for art and business. related to your art business and selling your artwork and other things like that. So I hope I see you back soon, and thanks again for joining me.